Hey y'all, Katie here with Team EvoAZ at eXp Realty. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We are super excited for this season. As you know, we are based in the Phoenix, Arizona area, but what you may not have known is that we're growing our team nationwide, and we have already started. So if you know of anybody that is looking to buy or sell throughout the country, no matter what state it's in, please contact us. We'd be happy to help. We'd be happy to offer advice. And if you know of anybody that is either getting into the real estate industry or is looking for an awesome change in their career and in their lives, we are also hiring real estate agents across the country. Thanks again and enjoy the show. Hey guys, here we are again. It's Katie and
Matt.
And this is our R.E.A.L show. So that stands for, so it's R.E.A.L, and that stands for real estate and life. So we talk a little real estate. We talk a little bit about life. We love having Alex on with us. So here he is. Say hello, Alex, to the world.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
As you all know, or maybe you don't, because now you're just watching for the first time, we're married, just in case you didn't know. And we are a married real estate couple. So we have been working in the Phoenix, Arizona, or Phoenix Metro, Valley-wide area for several years. How long have you been now? I lose count.
17 years.
17 years. My goodness. Wow. Yeah. And I'm right about 14. So combined together, that's quite a bit. But we've been doing this for a while, and we've come across a lot of things, haven't we, Alex? Alex works with us too.
Absolutely. We've come across almost everything.
I would say. Some days I think it's everything, and then it surprises me and there's more things, but that's okay. So today we're going to chat about appraisals. The truth about them, guys, because there's a lot of untruths out there, and there are a lot of things that people believe that aren't exactly true. It's just not how it works.
Fake news.
It's fake news, Matt will say. So, but they're very important, right? I mean, how many transactions do you deal with that don't have an appraisal involved? Very few?
No, unless they're cash.
Yeah.
Unless they're cash, not many.
Yeah.
So a lot of times appraisals are involved. So it's really important as an agent to know what the heck you're doing, to know a little bit about them, to know how to work with appraisers, things like that, so that you can protect your client the best that you can and really get the best deal for your client, whether that be a buyer or a seller. So super important. It is our fiduciary duty to do that. So let's talk a little bit, you know, all three of us are very busy agents. Let's talk a little bit about how we determine value. Yeah. Alex, when you've got a buyer in the car and they find the one, they walk through the door and they're like, Alex, this is the one.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? Because you're wanting to, again, protect that client. So you're wanting to determine value on that property. How do you go about that?
Absolutely. So, you know, the first question I get when a buyer wants to put in an offer is, hey, where should we go in at? Meaning, what should we offer on this property? Now, we're going to do a couple of things to determine the value. One thing is going to be comparable sales within the subdivision. We're going to work through comparable sales from, you know, most accurate are going to be the past 90 days within the subdivision. If I can get model matches of that floor plan, that's even better. And, you know, we basically scale it from there. I take a look at the upgrades of the sales that have occurred in that neighborhood and compare them to the subject property that we want to put an offer on. And then we can kind of, you know, since we've seen so many appraisals, we can kind of basically, we can determine the plus or minus value of every single item that's in there, meaning an upgraded kitchen gets you this much more value. A pool is going to get you this much more value compared to your subject property. And then we can arrive at a price from there. Also, another determining factor is going to be market conditions. And then if the seller has multiple offers, you know, we could talk about this forever, but there could be so many different determining factors when arriving at a value and putting in your offer in.
So I'm hearing a couple things here. First of all, let's go back to the comparison of the upgrades. So what you're saying is that, you know, you've seen enough appraisals, and I can attest, you definitely have, to know that in this particular area, a pool is probably going to get you X amount.
Yep.
That's what you mean, right? So when you're determining value, let's say you have a pool on your property, but a model match comes up or something that's really, really similar comes up, doesn't have a pool. That's what
Yep.
you mean by making the adjustment right there, right?
Exactly. And like you said, it's going to determine on the area, it's going to determine how nice that pool is, but each appraiser puts a value to a pool in certain different ways. One's going to put, you know, a non-pool house, they're going to drop the value 15,000. A pool house, they're going to increase the value 15 to 20 to 25,000. And, you know, appraisals are subjective. So each appraiser puts a different type of value towards upgrades.
Right. And I want to make it very, very clear that this is per location. So same type of house in Chandler is probably not going to have the same adjustment as the same, you know, product in Scottsdale, for instance. So there's going to be your pool adjustment, you know, using this example, is going to be different depending on what area you're in. Agree? Disagree? What do you think?
I agree.
That's what you've run into as well.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of appraisers, and that's how they do it. So Matt, how do you pull it similarly? I mean, is that the way that you go about it when you do more of like the, you do more determining value for listings?
Yeah.
More so? I mean, you do have your buyers, but is that kind of the way that you go about it as well?
Very much the same process, I'd say. Starting off with that specific market, obviously going outwards. Any appraiser is going to be looking at the closest comp that has the most similarities, whether it's square footage, it's a single level, 2 level, how many bedrooms, baths, all that stuff. And then they're going to kind of go to outlying areas to get whatever other information they need to support that. So I always start really small right around and work my way out, just so there's no surprises. At the end of the day, like Alex said, it is subjective. So you're dealing with so much data that you can be convenient in your approach, but you want to be realistic. You know what I mean? You can go out there and justify things as high or as low as you want, but you got to be realistic. And that's where I always start with what's closest to the property and move out, instead of trying to reach and justify values and then find out I kind of just lied to myself, my clients. And that's ultimately going to be determined once the appraiser comes out and looks at it. So,
So you guys don't use Zillow?
No.
Well, why not?
Well,
Why not?
their quick and convenient algorithms are pretty much that, quick and convenient. But just like most things in this world, things that are quick and convenient, you really don't get the qualities and, you know, the detail that you need. They're all over the board. They could be 30 to 40 grand low. They could be 50 grand high. And you know, this is all built off algorithms. So,
and to think about it is, how does a computer algorithm see inside of a property? How do they look at pictures? No, a computer can't see granite countertops. A computer can't see, you know, upgraded flooring or anything like that. So how can something like that determine value correctly? Like it can't. So, I mean, you know, it's interesting. I can tell you, I'm a real estate agent, and I've looked at the Zillow Zestimate in my house before. I mean, you know, just to see. But again, it's not going to take into account, you know, the full-blown remodel. And, you know, I don't know if it takes into account off MLS sales, because that's something that we didn't bring up when we were talking about determining value just a couple of minutes ago. Most people just pull what's on the MLS, but there's a little bit more to it than that, isn't there, Alex? Yeah, well, you know, we've saved a couple, well, in our historic districts, especially where there are a lot of handshake deals. There are a lot of neighbor to neighbor, you know, purchases that have occurred. We have saved several appraisals by looking on the tax records and seeing sales that don't come up on the MLS, that were done behind, you know, without an agent or for sale by owner or all of those type of things. and we've saved several. I can't even count how many appraisals we've saved, because appraisers are only looking on the MLS. Other agents are only looking on the MLS. And when you find those, those type of deals that were done, off MLS, they can save deals. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
100%. So it's all about digging. And really, this isn't something that just takes us 2 seconds to do.
No.
Like, this is something that you got to spend some time on.
You got to be very, very thorough, very
Yeah.
thorough. And once again, not lie to yourself, and almost like being a detective. You know what I mean?
Good point.
You're pretty much looking to become a detective on that house and really look at everything. Why did these homes sell for this much? Why did they not sell for this much? And you want to just be very realistic with yourself and creative. And it's really going to match what your buyers, especially if you're representing the buyer, what their needs are. Obviously, there's two different types of multiple situations, but in this, what we've seen is you have more of a buyer's market where buyers are looking to justify a lower price. So therefore, you're trying to justify a lower price. But in today's seller's market, buyers just want to buy, and you have to go above price. So now you're in the position of almost justifying a price above list, and doing that with your buyer's approval, obviously. But to make a deal work, you have to be aggressive. So experience and being seasoned, adjusting these values is one of the biggest traits and I would say positive attributes a realtor can have.
Yeah, it's super important because when equities are rising, we can't just determine value based on closed sales, right? Because then how would prices ever rise?
They wouldn't.
So in this particular market right now, where it's, as we know, incredibly busy, inventory is very, very low. When I'm going in on listing presentations, I'm looking at closed sales, because I know I'm going to have to work with the appraiser later, and we'll get to that. But I'm determining value a lot of times based on pendings and actives.
Absolutely. I've got several that I'm dealing with right now where I actually just yesterday, this is a great example, I called 2 of the pendings, and they're under contract for either $20,000 to $30,000, what it's been above what's being displayed on the MLS. And I'm just like, shoot, I hope that appraiser calls those agents. I'm gonna say that, obviously, hey, you can call the agent. They are $20,000 to $30,000 above, but this is what we're working with. That's a prime example of what you're talking about. These pendings are really actually showing what's going on in the market right now.
The right now.
Yeah.
Not the 30 days ago. Because when we have a closed sale, we have to remember that was negotiated 3 weeks, 30 days, 60 days ago.
Absolutely.
So that's what the picture of the market is then, not what the picture of the market is now.
Yeah.
But, you've got 2 different types of values that you're looking at too. You're looking at the appraised value, which is determined to represent to protect the bank, and their asset. And then you have the emotional value. And that's ultimately what our buyers are looking at, what the sellers are thinking. And what, like Kate was just saying, when you have a supply and demand issue, someone could walk in and say, oh my God, this is my dream layout. This is everything I wanted. And there's all these offers. Of course they're going to offer over. So you've got that emotional value that's really pushing people to say, I'll pay $20,000 over value. But then what's the appraiser going to say? What's the appraiser going to do? Because they're not going to, at the end of the day, they're not lending on emotional value.
Right. But there's something to be said about that. And we'll get to that in a minute. That's a really good point. I need to point something out right now that I love, Alex. Thank you so much for saying it. You actually pick the phone up and call other people to get information to collect it for your buyers. Yay! That's awesome.
Can you believe that?
I know.
Talk with my mouth to another agent.
You speak words.
I speak words. I don't just type them.
No, that's really, really important though, because like Matt said, you really are being a detective, and you want to protect your client, but you also want to get them this home, especially if that's what their goal is, right? Yeah. So if their be all end all is to get this home, then you've got a strategy to it, which I love. And completely appreciate that you call other agents, because you can find out such a world of information by just a quick 5-minute conversation with them. Throw it in your notes, prepare that for your report for your appraiser later, which I know not a lot of other people do either, which I appreciate that you do.
Yeah, and you never know, you could get an appraisal report out of it.
That's true. Exactly right. Exactly. Based on last conversation and the last episode, totally. Back to the conversation real quick about determining value based upon pendings and actives. So we know that pendings are, the real snapshot, really right now, what's going on in the market right now. But let's talk about the active listings a little bit, because I think those are also very important. When I'm determining value for a listing, I'm looking to see what the competition is.
Yeah.
When I hit the market in this zip code, in this 5-mile radius, in this entire city, whatever it is, when I hit the market, what are other buyers going to be looking at besides my home?
Yeah. And how much are they looking at?
Yeah. So I feel like that's really important. And so that's in a market where equities are increasing. What about when, let's talk, 2006? Do we even want to remember those years? But we were in the market during those times. We were working during those times. It's completely opposite.
Yeah, there's 55,000 homes on the market.
Right now, there's only 7,500, if that.
Yeah.
Huge difference. But anyway, when there's that much inventory, when the market is that saturated, what's happening to prices?
Yeah.
Right. So again, we have to watch the actives and the pendings. We can't just base our pricing, our value on closed comparables.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you instead of chasing the market down, you want to be competitive again. So you're looking for your competition there. But there's a little rub there, isn't it? So this is what we're doing because we need to get a sale made, because we have buyer and seller that have a common goal and they want to do the thing, right? But then we have to deal with appraisers. And guess what? Appraisers don't use actives and pendings in their, they'll kind of give a little bit of weight to it, but they don't put a bunch of weight on actives and pendings. So it creates a little rub for us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. They'll put those actives and pendings on the third page of sales comparables on their report. They'll put it in the back, because just like you said, they don't put as much weight. And like our conversation, like we had just a couple minutes ago, right now, market indication are those pendings, those actives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and one of the other things that everyone needs to, really consider is, when an appraiser is looking at sold comps, they're going to go back up to 90 days. Okay.
Yeah.
What have we just experienced in the last 90 days? A pandemic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what we have is we have COVID that has really, really affected, and a lot of banks and institutions are putting this into their thoughts. So they're looking back and they're saying, hey, what was going on at that time? Well, that time is really not a reflection of today.
Yeah.
So they're making those adjustments, but they're also they're kind of looking for answers from realtors. They're looking for new information because this is all new for them. So if you're a complacent agent that's just leaving it up to the powers that be and not helping provide comps to these appraisers and supportive data and analysis, you're really holding your breath and you're not doing any services. You need to let them know what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and what the truth is on the ground.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. I have an example. This just recently happened. So you know how it's really, really important for us, like you just said, you do your research, you talk to other agents, you put together a report, you tell the appraiser, hey, here's what's going on, call this person, you kind of help them out a little bit, right? And it's really important as a listing agent, because again, you're protecting that value for your seller. Is really important for a listing agent to do that. Would you agree?
I agree.
So I know we have 1,000 stories like this, but this recently happened and I was completely blown away by the level of representation that this poor lister was getting, or this poor seller was getting from this listing agent that I was dealing with. So I have the buyer and normal, go through the inspections. The normal next step is to have the appraiser go in. Appraiser goes in and he actually tells the listing agent, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be able to arrive at value here. So the listing agent sends him 5 comparables. Okay, that's it. No, hey, I called, 2 of them were pending. No, hey, I called this pending guy and here's what's going on. No, hey, I got 40 showings in one day. When I hit the market, I had 8 over the list price offers. No sales data, nothing, just these 5 comps. And so the appraisal comes back $17,000 low. Ooh, owies for that seller, right? For my buyer's like, cool, can we just drop it down to this price and move forward? And so, you know, I went to negotiate that with the listing agent, and the listing agent said, no, my seller disagrees with this appraisal report. Let's go back to the appraiser, which we can do as long as everybody agrees. Let's go back to the appraiser and submit our information and basically like protest this value. So I said, okay. I got permission from my buyer to do that because remember, my fiduciary duty is to get the best deal for my buyer, right? Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden I'm putting together all of this information for them to appraise more, and they wanted the house. So they wanted me to do that. They said, go ahead, do your work, get it done. So I'm in discussion with the listing agent and he sends over the same 5 comparables again. That was it. No information about, right? And so I had all these questions for him. I said, you know, first of all, sir, thank you very much, but those are the same 5 comparables you already sent him, 2 of which are pending. Where's your information? How did things go during the sale? Like, I don't know this information. How many showings did you get? How many offers did you get? Because believe it or not, guys, that really plays a huge part in it. Also, appraisers are human, are they not?
Well, that's the biggest thing to remember, that appraisers are human, and they're dealing with the same stresses and the same stuff that everyone is dealing with right now. A lot of people feel like, hey, you know, what is that, honey over vinegar type of thing, and you get guys that are agents that are strong arming appraisers, and it's the worst thing you can do. You know, I mean, that's the person that you really want to make sure they have everything that they need. They really like you. They ultimately know that you're just more than a number. There's emotion involved. They know how much your buyers love this property. They know who your buyers are. So they're not just putting a number. They know there's so much behind that.
Yeah.
It's so true. And then, you know, what about, because humans make mistakes, what about mistakes on the appraisal report?
And it's super simple. And especially when you're talking about an appraiser, that's probably what has 5 to 10 appraisals going at any given time, all over the valley, anywhere from $150,000 condos to $1 million homes on horse property.
They have deadlines.
So they have deadlines. They're dealing with all these things. Their brains are going. So when you have agents just send over, like Kate was saying, just 5 properties with no adjustment. And what we mean by adjustment is an actual description on saying how we adjusted this property. This property is, we see it as $5,000 more because it has an additional bathroom, or it has upgraded flooring, it has this, or it's less because it's on a corner or a smaller lot. You have to actually spell this out in your report to go along with each of these listings. A lot of agents don't do that. And at that point, you're not doing anything. You're just literally throwing it up for someone's own interpretation. And what's the good of that?
Exactly right. And there's been thousands of times when I have noticed that there's actual inaccuracies with the comparables or the subject property. So in this particular example with this gentleman that I dealt with last week, it was a 200 square foot difference in the subject property. Mm-hmm. So he was appraising it for 200 square feet less than what he should have. Could have made a big difference right there, right?
Things are selling at almost $200 a square foot. Do the math.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and so I asked.
That's 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
That's size of 2 bedrooms right there, you know, like to put that into perspective for people.
Exactly. And so I asked this listing agent, I was like, did you comb through the appraisal just to double check and make sure everything is, you know, accurate on especially your listing, the subject property? Did you look at the appraiser's adjustments? Do the adjustments make sense? Is he using the same adjustment on each comparable for the same type of thing? Or do we have some human errors here that we need to bring to his attention? And again, I found one like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think like nowadays, a lot of appraisers have these almost desktop algorithm programs.
They do.
Because of the amount of volume they're working with, they're almost leaving it to the powers of be. And if the automated system gives them value, then, or whatever it gives, that's what they're moving forward. Where, you know, as 5 years ago, when we didn't have this type of technology, there was a lot more human element involved, where these agents were using their own skills in the field and what they know and what they see and feel versus just what a computer reports back, and that's that. So,
So inaccuracies in the report. I can't tell you how many times I've come across it, had it corrected, and boom, there we go. We're all set.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of work here that a lot of people leave on the table, unfortunately. And who suffers? The buyers and the sellers, unbeknownst to them typically, because they don't know the difference between this as their agent that does just about as much as that pen does, or somebody who's been there, somebody who does the homework, does the research, puts the hours in. This doesn't just take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This takes time. Like, you've got to put the work in to get there for your client. And, you know, and a lot of people think, especially those that attempt selling on their own, don't understand that the market activity, the sales activity, remember how I said, how many showings did you get? How many offers did you get? Were they all over list price? Like this information is super important. And I've actually had friends, yes, I know friends don't let friends sell on their own, but I did once. And my friend sold on her own and came to me and told me that we appraise less. And the appraiser actually said to us, a part of it, a factor in that was I had no MLS activity to go by. I had you didn't put it out to the masses, basically.
Yeah. I mean, traffic is a huge thing. If you can prove that, hey, I got within 48 hours, I had 30 showings, 10 offers, you know, this much above list price, blah, blah, blah. They're going to eat that up. I mean, what we're doing is we're putting our property on a pedestal, right? You know, we want to show, hey, this is why it's valued here. This is why it went above list price. These are all these things. We're propping our property up as much as possible. And the more evidence we have, that's what the appraiser is looking for, because they want evidence. They don't want, you know, just us giving talking points. They want evidence. They want evidence that, hey, we can show in our showing schedule that this is how many offers we had. We have this is how many showings we had. We have physical offers to show that, hey, I had 10 offers on this property.
Right.
So, you know, the more evidence we can provide, you know, the more percentage of a chance that we're going to get that value that we agreed to.
Yeah.
Totally agree. You recently had an incident also.
Yeah. And it was interesting because it was almost this like stalemate where as a listing agent, your fiduciary duty to the seller is to get them obviously the most money possible. Then you put the other hat on as a buyer's representative, buyer's agent, and your job is to get them the best deal possible. But in today's market, with the low inventory, buyers understand this. And as long as you're being educated properly, they know that they need to be aggressive and probably offer over. Well, in this situation, I have a buyer that I'm representing. They love this home. We've been looking for a while, getting beat out. And we had to come in kind of aggressive. And sure enough, we get a notification from the appraiser saying it's called Tidewater. And that's a phrase that they use that, hey, we've determined that we are having a hard time finding justification for the value of the contract price. So we're like, oh crap. So I reach out to the agent who seemed to have been doing this for a while, but really wasn't speaking the language we're speaking right now and the experience level that we are. And I said, hey, we have a problem, you know, and she's like, well, I know the sellers aren't going to drop if it comes in low. And I'm like, oh. And my buyers are like, do whatever you got to do. We want this property. This is our dream property. So at that point in time, the agent that sent over the comps to me to give to the appraiser, they were 4 months, 5 months old. They just didn't. As I looked at them, they actually justified a lower value.
Oh,
So I got really frustrated because I'm like telling my buyers, I'm like, listen, I'm going to have to really kind of do this listings agent's job to justify this price because they said they're not going to drop the price. So with their permission, I did it. I got out there and I really created this very compelling report that was substantiated by amazing data from many different levels. And sure enough, we were able to get it to come in at value. But that being said, if we just left this up to the powers that be, to that agent to do what they were supposed to do in their fiduciary duty to their seller, we would have had an under appraisal and probably a canceled offer. And that would have left my buyers high and dry. That would have left their seller in a weird position. And that doesn't help anyone. So, and it was, the listing agent actually said, that was a beautiful report. Thank you so much. And
for
it was
doing
very
my
kind
job.
words. And I thought,
Exactly.
yeah, well, yeah, but it was also nice to hear that they're not all salty, where a lot of agents just know that you're pointing out their shortcomings and it's blatantly obvious that you're doing their job. So, but it all worked out and we have happy buyers, very happy buyers.
So yours was a success story, and you actually came in at value because of the work that you had done. And your buyers are very happy with that because that's the property that they wanted. And well, in my case, in my situation, I got the $17,000 off the purchase price for my buyer because the listing agent was just finally gave up and was like, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to do this work. And I'm just going to have my seller sign. So can you imagine, like, that poor seller?
But it also probably, maybe the seller was just frustrated, and maybe they just looked at their agent and they're like, just take it. But I was shocked when you told me that. I was like, wow, that is.
I mean, $17K is that's a big number. I mean, that's a lot for somebody to lose. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for that price point. I mean, it was in the twos, so it was pretty close to 10%. Yeah. Which, I mean, too bad, so sad for them. Sorry. But my buyer's super pumped and really excited to get into this house for, almost 20 grand less than what they originally thought. So it's so important. It's so important to do the work. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, okay, once the contract is signed on the dotted line, like, my job's over. I did it. I found you a buyer, or I found a buyer a house. That's it. That is not just it.
No.
That is like this amount of this job. Like, ridiculous to me how some people think that's the only thing that, a broker and agent does, because it's not. Well, maybe some, but that they should be doing. Yeah. Because it's not.
No.
Well, and it's kind of like what we were saying even on our last podcast was last episode we did was like stumbling a bit, but was ultimately the knowledge of our product. You have so many agents out there that they sell real estate, but they don't know jack shit about real estate itself, about a house and how much flooring costs and how much cabinets costs and all this stuff. Where when you have seasoned agents like us three going into a property, we can almost by second nature quickly adjust and say, oh, they got new flooring, they got new cabinets, they have an additional bathroom, they've got these ornate things, where most realtors don't know this stuff and they're freaking out and they don't know how to adjust and they don't know what the values are. And that just gives us such an edge, and it helps our clients achieve what they're trying to achieve ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, that's all a part of it, especially, when we're representing the seller. We need to list all the upgrades that are put in that house. There are things that appraisers, they're obviously not going to be opening up walls. They're not going to be climbing on the roof. We need to tell them that's a new AC unit up there. Those are new, dual pane, triple pane windows. That's a new electrical panel on a 50s or 40s property. They're not going to be digging the ground. That's a new sewer line down there that costs $10,000. Next door, that sewer line's probably shot, and my this buyer is getting a new one. So these are the things that we need to pump up. We need to ask our sellers, hey, how much did it cost you to do that? And we need to tell those appraisers, hey, this is how much it costs to put that in there. Think about that. So, there's so much, listing and working and things that we have to do to justify,
Yeah.
100%. The report that I send over for my listings is a mile long to the appraiser versus, you know, just throwing 5 comps at him, 2 are pending.
Yeah.
Some aren't even in the neighborhood.
And like, and not even being proactive. And that's the biggest thing that we can do as agents for our clients is be proactive. If we're on the listing side, we know that there's a rule that right off the bat, the lender is telling whoever the appraisal party is, you're not to enter the property until you contact us for access. And in that process, that's when we're able to proactively provide them with our list of comps, our upgrades, our thoughts, our feelings, all the activity that was on that property, all the things that are going to help justify our seller's top price. A lot of agents don't do that. They literally just hold their breath and hope for it to be, which is the scariest thing in the world, especially in today's competitive market. If that's your, if you're a buyer out there in this marketplace, and that's how your agent thinks, that's complacent, doesn't understand all of this, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You are not going to get the house that you need. And it's kind of sad.
Or that you want at the price that you should.
Yeah, at the price that you should.
Yeah. You know,
said.
the scariest thing that happens to me is when a listing agent calls me up or texts me and is like, hey, do you know if the appraisers accessed the property yet? And I'm like, oh no, man. And I'm like, I just know, like, okay, well, you definitely haven't talked to them. Like, B, you're probably never going to. Like, I'm like, and C, like, oh, it's gonna underappraise, like, you know. So it's tough. It's tough.
But you know what to look for, Alex, as a good buyer's representative. You know that from the listing side. And that's why it's really, really important to have an agent that's well-versed on all sides and understands the psyche and adjustments made from both sides.
Yeah.
100%. So guys, I know that we can probably talk appraisals all day, every day, for hours and hours and hours, but I think that we were pretty thorough in our topic today, and I think that we revealed a couple of nuggets of importance, shall I say. So everybody, audience out there, do us a favor. Whatever platform you are listening to this on, iTunes is our favorite. Please download our episodes, subscribe, like, comment, give us a 5-star rating, because we just want to make sure that this information gets out to the people, because this is the real news, guys, isn't it?
Real news.
All right, Alex, it's been fun. Thanks so much for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Bye.